Does have a mask on, but we have been socially distanced. We moved the seats around. So in order to hear us better, everyone that would like to can take off their masks. And if we have a recess, then we'll put them back on. Thank you. So first of all, I want to remind everyone that this is a budget workshop. So we will not be taking any votes today, and we will not be having any public participation due to it being a workshop. Just asking everyone, just listen to what the other city council members have to say. Listen to our finance director as he does this presentation. If we have questions at any time, please be respectful and don't interrupt anyone else. We'd appreciate it. Next thing is I want to let you know, we'll probably have a short recess, maybe a 10-minute recess around 2:15 or 2:30. So with that being said, Finance Director Swartzlander, would you like to get started?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to share my screen here. This is my first time doing this in Zoom, so and I'm able to project up to here, so if it's too small on your screen.
Yeah, we're not actually seeing it on our screen, so we'll have to look up there.
Is there a way to make that happen? It'd be a lot easier for us.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, let me go ahead and dive right in. I just want to hit real quick on the trim process. Is that good now? Can you hear me now? Okay. The trim process for this year, a little different than last year, because last year we did the workshop in July. So if I go back here, everything's there. Okay. So obviously today we're having our workshop in August. I asked for this to be pushed back to August because of the COVID-19 questions about revenues and stuff. But the next step in the trim process is September 9th is where we will adopt the tentative millage rate and tentative budget. Just want to remind everybody that is a Wednesday meeting. Normally we would move to Monday, but that's a holiday. Didn't think you all wanted to come in on a holiday, so we selected the 9th. And then the final millage rate and final budget hearing will be on September 22nd. Both of those meetings will be public hearings. The public will have an opportunity to address the millage rate, budgets, anything contained in the budget at both of those meetings. Today's plan for me is I'm going to talk about our current taxable valuations. We did a little bit when we adopted the proposed rate, but current rollback rates for all cities, proposed rate for our city, issues outstanding for the proposed budget, and then we'll discuss the budget at whatever level you want to, and then we'll discuss some other issues, debt and salary type issues. Last year's taxable value was $1,655,000,000. We grew to $1,725,000,000, and we're still roughly 13% below where we were in 07-08.
Are these going to be available to?
Yes, I can.
So we don't need
yeah. Okay. So this past year we had a little over $10 million in new construction value. added to our tax rolls. That can be either, it says new construction, but that can be a remodel. You add a pool, however the property appraiser considers. When you pull a permit, they look at it and add value if they so choose. Last year, I think we only had $1 million new value. So our total taxable growth value is around 4.2%. Nice little growth. This was valued pre-COVID. This was January 1, 2020 valuation. So next year, I'm not sure what the impact will be. I'm sure our property appraiser will also keep us well informed of how they're going to handle any impact of COVID-19, because they'll be doing it as of January 1, 2021. So we'll have plenty of time before we go into the next budget to address whatever issues there may be with that valuation. I have a whole slide on rollback. I think you all understand what rollback is, so I'm not going to read it to you unless there are questions.
Yeah, I'd just like to make the comment so everybody understands. This rollback is not in constant dollars. In other words, inflation is not really considered, right?
Correct. Inflation is not considered.
So that can make a big difference when you have a lot of inflation.
It could absolutely, because rollback is the exact same dollars as the prior year. So if you go to rollback for 10 years, you have zero CPI or cost of living associated with that. It's flat dollars. So we all know $100 10 years ago is the same as $100 today. So that's the only issue I have with rollback, and I'll step off my soapbox and go back on. So back in July, council approved a proposed rate of 5.23. We went through the budget and we think that we're balanced at 5.0476, depending on some consensus that this council gives me today, hopefully. So that's why I have proposed rate at 5.23 or 5.0476, depending on what direction you give staff at the end of the meeting today. We also have geo debt millage rates. Last year we were 1.7977. The rollback, even though there isn't really rollback on this one, would be 1.7350.
Kurt, what year did those go into effect?
The geo debt was 2006 or 2007.
Okay. And that
I
was
believe the
voted.
vote was in 06 and then taxes started in 07.
Okay, and that was a vote.
Yes,
by
the citizens voted, I believe, at a general election. That.
Thank you.
So I found this interesting. I don't normally show you everybody's proposed rates. I usually just show you where we fall with our proposed rollback rate. So I had it proposed this year because it's been a very interesting year across and you see certain cities are going to current rate. They may be like us though, where we go down, but some cities even went above current, like Orange City. They're currently at 7.8. Their proposed was 8.0. I don't know the percentage increase, even though the rollback was only 7.3. So we maintained our position at number 12. And so we're in the bottom of the 3rd, 25th percentile there. So any questions on that? I just always find it interesting to look at the other cities to see what the...
Is current rate what is in effect for this year?
Yes.
And the proposed is for next year?
Yes.
Did anyone shift?
They're kind of, when you say shift.
Well, I mean, were they anyone, you know, I can look and see, but bottom of 25 or middle 25 and went up?
Not really.
Stayed about.
Ponce and Daytona Beach were the only ones that moved up or down.
Okay.
But they're, 0.05 different on their current rate. But Daytona did propose quite a bit less. They actually went below rollback. But those are the only two that switched on the chart. But again, they may change in September. I just went by what was published on the property appraiser's website. So as I said before, we're proposing going to the rollback rate of 5.046. 6. Any rate that we adopted in July can't be increased, as you're aware, but it can be decreased at either the tentative or the final rate adoption hearings.
And that was a 5.23.
Correct. At 5.23 and 1.7350. We adopted 2. So.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
The vote on that is Tuesday, right?
No, September.
September 9th, and then September 22nd.
Okay, so what, you were talking about guidance or something, I don't know what you,
Well,
yeah.
you'll see what
Okay.
information I'm needing as we go through here. So at real high level today, last year we went department by department. I know we have some other topics to discuss, so I'm going to try and stay pretty high level. We have large decreases in this year's budget. Last year we were 18.2 million. This year we're at 16.9 million for a total budgetary decrease of almost 1.3. The biggest piece of that was change due to capital expenditures. We got $570,000 in one fire truck there last year that obviously comes out of the budget this year. So that's not quite half of the expenditures.
And what was the other big chunk or chunks?
I'll get into that.
Okay,
So I mentioned COVID issues and revenue, and these are the 4 big ones that we got at the end of the month, the state's estimates. These represent quite a bit of money to the city and the impact. We're expecting to lose about $190,000 between these 4 revenues. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. However, saying that, I used the state estimates and then took 20% off of those. And that's how I came up with 190. Now, the state did say that they issued numbers, but they're going to meet again at the end of August, and they may revise their numbers. So that's why I took 20% off. Better to under budget and have extra come in than be going, hey, we're short in this one and this one and this one. So it,
And Kurt, would we be in any worse shape in our city, or is almost every city, at least in Volusia County, going to be seeing this sort of?
everybody, I don't know if they're all going to be seeing the same thing, but finance directors, we've been meeting every Wednesday on a Zoom call, and everybody is doing 20 to 25% off. That's why I chose 20. We're just kind of in that ballpark.
Okay, great, thank you.
Wish I had a better crystal ball on that, but none of us do. And
is this 190, what's the state's estimate?
I am 20% below the state's estimates.
Okay, and I could see 20% above, but don't explain why you're 20% below.
Because they're not comfortable with their numbers. They're going to be, normally they would be done with their revenue. It's a revenue estimating conference is what they call it. They do that conference.
But they think they've overestimated it?
They basically said they are not comfortable with their numbers.
Yeah.
So they're planning on meeting again, whether they do or not, I don't know yet, but that's why I took numbers off. And looking at what everybody else was doing in conversations with other cities. Again, I always feel more comfortable budgeting less and we get more in, rather than going halfway through the year having to tell staff, okay, you need to start cutting here, here, and here. It's always better when you get more than you were anticipating. So, I mean, the 20 is somewhat random, but based on what the other cities were doing in our discussions back and forth about that, some were even going as high as 30%. I don't think we're there. I think 20 is a fairly good number for us.
At the end of August, will you have a firm number on that?
If they issue new numbers, yes. So I'll be checking that regularly to see if they issue. And again, we're going to continue with our meetings as well. So
That's what I was going to say, on September 9th,
we'll continue to talk about it. And then obviously we've talked about interest, and I should say the interest we're not getting. So I took $104,000 out of the general fund budget out of approximately 150 that we had, and just I got about 50 in there, speaking in round numbers here, to keep that as interest coming in. Even that, the rates are still down. Last time we talked, we were around 0.5, we're at 0.43 right now, one of our higher ones, so it's still going down. I use 0.43 as part of this calculation. So those are two big areas. So very high level, on the revenue side, you'll see that the budget change on the non-voted ad valorem taxes has a change of 327.8. That is because I have 5.23 mils in the budget, but you'll see that we're balanced at 5.0476. So the difference there is not the 327.8. If we change the millage, it's about 303.5. That increase includes that new construction I was talking about. So that's the difference between the new construction and the millage rate. So,
When you talk about new construction, at what point do we start to get revenue? So like the Max and their Aruba, do they have to be open before we get any revenue from that new construction, or?
it depends. I believe it's when the certificate of occupancy is issued.
All right. So
And so that is, and there's different ways they do that, especially on condos. I've seen it where they'll have unfinished units, but they'll CO the building until somebody buys the unit and builds it out.
Okay.
So there'll be a certain value, but then when they pull the permit to build it out, that would be additional new construction. But the building itself, obviously if it's built out as it's being built, then it's at that point of CO. So the condos, which are our big bread and butter here, can be handled a couple different ways on new construction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
yes.
So the expenditure side includes the following: salary adjustments based on our existing CPI merit plan. Nothing with the salary study that was presented. This was just this merit plan that we have been using, I believe, since 2011.
So business as usual.
Business as usual, yes. And that's the one based on everybody's, annual evaluation. It includes the FRS changes from last year that we implemented. It includes all scheduled debt payments. We'll talk about debt. I asked staff to limit our capital expenditures this year, so that's why we have a big, because we weren't sure what revenues were going to be, and capital is usually big ticket items. And we do have some anticipated carryovers from prior year's budget. Primarily the public safety roof is in there. It's about $275,000. For September, it looks like I'm probably going to have to increase that number for the fire truck, because it doesn't look like that will be here until end of October, beginning of November. So we pay for it, but it's an accounting thing for when the expenditure hits is when we take receipt. So I've got to put it in budget, but that's money that will come out of current year budget and just be carried forward to the other. There's, I think, one other small project. Small. It's our software. We had $100,000 for software upgrades. We're installing those, but I don't think we're going to be done by October 1. So those will probably be rebudgeted as well in the following year. Okay, expenditures as a whole, just like revenues, down $1,290,200, and almost every department, with few exceptions, are down. Unless you want to, I'm not going to go department by department, but I can flip open the budget. We can do that if you choose. It's a very conservative budget based on the times. Everybody tried to keep it as tight as they could.
Could you explain the big number, or the biggest number in here?
Yeah,
Why public safety has gone down almost 600K?
fire truck,
Just-
570,000.
That's just the fire truck.
Yeah, we had 570 in the budget for the fire truck, so that's the biggest one there. But the next slide, I think, will answer that question for you. So breaking it out by personnel cost, operational cost, capital, and debt service. Personnel cost for the whole general fund only went up 15,700. Operations went down 119.2. Capital is 1,188. So and debt service goes down 15,000. So you can see it's mostly our reductions year-over-year budget are capital.
Is the personnel based on full staffing or existing positions or what?
It's full staffing.
Full staffing.
So if there's a vacancy, I do budget
Okay.
that position, but I budget it at the entry level for that position.
Okay, so Kurt, I want to see if I understand this. If we've already decided that the salary study survey, we're not doing anything with this year. We might look back at it next year because there was some good points in it. So this 15,700 you're giving us is if we do business as usual, merit CPI, it will only increase 15,700
On the personnel cost.
on the personnel.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know this one's a little hard to see, but this takes all of the general fund and breaks it out into the individual account line items, but lumped together. So what I like to show on this one is as a percentage of budget, all of our personnel costs are this 44.3. So out of our $16.9 million budget, 44.3% of that is the cost of the people doing the work.
So I know there was some feedback that we got from an outside source, this 44.3, and I can have them come up later on, but I believe our city manager also did an analysis to see where we were in cities in Volusia County. So I would like to look at that.
Yes. And that number, just so you're aware, can be kind of all over the place.
Okay.
And I say that because if I add back last year's capital as an example, I had 1.29 million back in of capital. Now your percentage goes down of personnel. I mean, I think it's an obvious statement, but I want to remind people that that number is a percentage of the total budget. So when you add or delete strange things in a year, it can swing that percentage way over down.
The other thing too, I believe there's 6 or 7 people in public safety that are in the budget that have not been hired. And so we might be able to, and Chief may be able to look at a way to be able to not have to fill all those positions.
Yes, yeah, I believe it is 6 vacant positions in the budget.
Yeah, $40,000 a piece, which is $250,000.
Yes. And actually, when you add retirement and everything else, it's,
So if the chief is able to figure out a way to be able to continue the same service level with a couple of less bodies, if he can put his head together and get his arms around that, that would help us as well.
yes. And just because we have it in the budget doesn't mean that we would necessarily, sometimes you budget a position in anticipation of this or that and you don't fill it. Obviously, those dollars go back into the fund balance at the end of the year anyway. So yeah, if we decide not to fill a position, you're right, it would add to the bottom line and we're in a better
But
position.
the figures you're showing us right now are anticipated that they would be filled, correct? So that would come off of it.
Correct. That's a big, that's a big yes.
And how many openings do we have in public works right now? Is there 2?
We just filled 2 a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, so
Public works, not public safety.
no public works. Yeah, I wanted to know if there was any.
I don't think there are any, there's, I think only 1 vacant position
One. Okay.
in the community center here.
The $15,000 increase in salaries, which includes the 6 folks in public safety, it obviously, by definition, would not include the $28,000 in raises by taking people from $12 an hour to $15.
Correct, this budget does not include that proposed change.
Okay.
So that would be an additional 28, so it'd be 15 plus, be about 45.
Okay.
So that is kind of the highlights of the general fund. Sewer fund is very flat. actually overall down a little bit with sewer consumption. This is a consumption-based budget, so the more they use it, the bigger our budget gets, but also the bigger revenue we have, the bigger expense we have, because we pay Port Orange for our sewer. So the more they treat, the more we pay. No real surprises here. I do a budget for sewer impact fees, but to be honest with you, this one is a guess because it's me guessing on what construction and what impact we're going to have.
Sure.
I think we will have some because Oceans 25 will probably pull their permits next year. So hopefully that's the love it that were earlier, but
yeah.
So now we're going to get into, there's been a lot of discussion about debt payoff, and I believe we have some opportunity to accelerate that payoff.
Before you get started on that,
Yes.
Kurt, could I say thank you to our vice mayor for even bringing this forward? I mean,
Yes.
just no matter what, there are several different scenarios that we can look at, but each one of them will result in a savings to our city.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that we give you thanks, Vice Mayor, for, bringing this up and looking at it.
You're welcome.
And I want to thank Mel as well.
And Mel.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Mel.
Okay.
We've had some good discussions about it as well, and they're both very knowledgeable, and I mean, I've talked with everybody else.
Well, thank you.
but thank
Thank you. But anyway, I want to do my thanks.
You got the ball rolling, Richard.
Yeah.
So you've seen this slide before. This is our 5 debts, the general fund facilities debt issued in 05, the 3 underground ones issued in 07, 08, and 2010, and then we have a state revolving fund loan for the sewer department. That's the smallest or lowest percent interest rate of all of them, but I'm going to talk about that one first, even though that's technically the lowest savings. There's also some low-hanging fruit. So we'll talk about that one first. So in the sewer fund side, it's an enterprise fund, so we don't talk about fund balance, we talk about net position. So as of September 30th, we had an unrestricted net position of 9.5 million basically, plus some reserve for the debt service based on the covenants and stuff of 112,000. We requested a payoff calculation on that. As of August 31st, the payoff on that one is 851,000. So I'm going to ask for council's consensus to take some of that unrestricted net position dollars and take it from basically 9.5 down to 8.7 and pay that off this month. What that will require is a budget amendment at the meeting on Tuesday. If you've looked at your agenda, you already see I put it in there.
Yeah.
So it was in there and published. This one, it's not a lot of money, but it does say 23,000, and it gets us closer to being debt free.
And Kurt, I know that you explained something to me, and if you could say it again, we've gone over so many numbers. Did you say there was already money in this fund that we would, or where would we?
This is the sewer fund.
No.
It's, in essence, we're taking it from the fund balance, or this, the net position, as they call it.
No, okay.
Kind of retained earnings idea. The ASB keeps changing it over the years, and but we have it there, and going to from basically 9.5 to 8.7 isn't going to impact the sewer fund in any way, shape, or form. We usually have a contingency that we're adding to that position each year. Now, in the upcoming years, we're going to have some big dollar expenditures. I've had lengthy discussions with Fred. He has great concerns about our force mains. Our lift stations are in great shape, but the force mains are what are under pressure as sewage moves from location to location. Unfortunately, I believe most of our lanes, and I'm going to look at Stuart or Shannon here, I believe most of our force mains are in the right southbound lane of A1A. Is that where most of them are located? So when
and private property as well.
and private property, yes. So when we go to eventually have to replace those, that's big dollars because you're tearing up A1A and you can't patch. You have to tear up the whole street and it just adds up real quick. So the other thing is that we, at one point, were in discussions, very preliminary with Port Orange about adding a second sewer main going from our lift station over to their plant.
We would like to have ponds included in that.
And yeah, we'd like to include everybody. We're trying to do a multi-jurisdictional. We had been in contact with their finance director. It's a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I think. Unfortunately, she passed away. And the discussions have kind of fallen by the wayside. And we've tried to pick them up, but with COVID and everything recently,
But it's on your radar.
but that is going to be a bored line is what we talked about, which is you're boring under the river. That's not going to be cheap as well. So, and then getting it from the river up to our station and connect it over there. But that would give us a backup. So those two things are things Fred has talked to me about. That's probably going to be way more than 8 million, but in the future, that would be somewhere I would look at maybe borrowing money. But if we do it as a joint project, who knows what the cost will be.
That was one of my questions. So if we do pay this off, do we have to take anything out of reserves to pay this off, or you have another fund?
Now, the sewer fund has its own reserves.
Okay. So-
And we're going to take 851,000 out of the sewer fund reserves.
And then if we ever did need, or when we need to to do all those repairs, we'd either take a loan or could we take something out of reserves at that time?
Well, you can do a couple different things, depends on where money is cheapest. If it's less than 10 million, usually that's the magic number for difference between a bond and just a straight loan.
Mhm.
At least it was. It's been a couple of years since I've issued a bond or a loan. But 10 used to be the magic number. But also there's different ways depending on, say we had a bunch of money in our general fund.
Mhm.
We don't have a policy that allows it right now. There's nothing in state law that says we can't borrow from one fund to the other and pay ourselves back. So vice versa, if the general fund needed money, if we had a policy, we could borrow from sewer. Same thing, if we have a bunch of money in general fund, we can loan it to sewer with a distinct payment plan. And it's actually something I'd like to put in place in case we ever need it, rather than needing it and having to come back and write a policy and everything, just having a plan in place. And obviously it has to be a reasonable interest rate, I believe is the language that's out there for that. So yes, we'd be using 851,000 to go ahead and pay this off. That would be the action you would be taking on Tuesday. Maybe that's what you were referring to before. That's nothing on millage rates, just on the budget amendment to tell staff to pay this loan off. All right. The next loan is the biggest.
Is there any estimate of what that would cost? The second line?
No idea. No, it was so preliminary on those discussions. No idea. Nobody's even talked to an engineer whether it's possible to do it with existing stuff there or anything. It's just we don't have a backup. That pipe is really, really old, and if it breaks, the existing pipe, my understanding is it's sitting on the riverbed, so if it breaks, it's leaking into the river. But that's more of a Fred question. I just figure out how to pay for things.
And that's something that the conversations I've had with the city manager and with Fred at the beginning of next year, I would like to get back on track that we start looking at that.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I'd like to then now talk about the Series 2005 loan. This is the longest one that we have out there, highest rate and longest running. It is set to be paid off at the end of fiscal year 2026.
And is it the 10,700,000?
Yes, if we pay it out, we owe about 4.7 if we pay it based on the loan schedule. So I have a slide to talk about where the money would come for these other loans and this loan. So right now, as of September 30th, we had a fund balance for the general fund of 20 million. Can you see my pointer?
Yes.
Okay. So we have 3,056,000 that is set aside just for this loan. We also have 2.2 million that is set aside for the underground loans for those three. And then we have what we call unassigned fund balance of 13.68. We also have just under $1 million set aside for road improvements. That is the second local option gas tax monies that we can't touch, that can only be used for new roads or repaving existing city roads. And we've got a little bit up there in inventory prepaid, so that's kind of irrelevant. So for these loans, we're going to be talking about the blue, the purple, and the green number. The blue amount is dedicated to this bond that we're talking about currently. The purple is for those three, and then this is available for use as council sees fit. So
And what was the balance on the loan?
4.7.
Okay, so,
If we pay it everything on schedule.
okay, 4.7.
Payoff, I've got on the next slide.
Okay.
So the payoff amount as of July 31st, a few days ago, was 4.227 million. So obviously it's going to be slightly more than that because interest accrues. It shouldn't be that much, but what I'm proposing is since we have 3 million of it in that debt service reserve requirement anyways, we would only need to take out 1.171 of that for the 4.27, and we would pay off that loan this month.
Any idea how much interest we would save on that?
Approximately 450,000. It's 452 if we paid it on July 31st. Now, in that calculation, I did a real rough calculation on what we would have earned on that money over the remainder of that loan through 2026. So I subtracted that from, so it's money we're losing, which in this case, not a whole lot.
0.041.
I
yeah.
mean,
At 0.5%, is that what you used?
yes,
I don't think it'll be 0.5% going forward. I'd be surprised if.
but we're already at 0.43 on
Yeah.
Seacoast.
Yeah.
So, and I'm expecting that to continue to
Go down.
Yes.
So it's the 450, Kurt, if I may, plus the 23,000 from the sewer, so we're looking at 473 so far.
Yeah, it'll tick up.
Okay.
And then what we do with the next will determine how we go on that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
So this bond and the sewer that we just talked about, that's what's on the budget amendment for Tuesday night. If you decide on any of the future ones, we will have to do an amendment to that amendment. If you decided to accelerate anything else, and those are the pieces that we'll dive into next. So I'm skipping back and forth on this chart and doing what I'm calling the low-hanging fruit again. This bond, the Series 2010, it's scheduled to be paid off. I believe it's October is our payment, so I'm not asking for any directions. I'm just going to pay that one off in October.
So that's
So
3 of the 5.
That's
This
the
is
easiest of all of them because it's scheduled to be paid
That's
off.
right.
Yes.
So
So
this is the third one.
3 of the 5 are proposed to be paid off right here. So obviously there's no savings on that one because we're just going to pay it to maturity. So right now, to your point, Councilmember Frizzle, 450 and 23 to this point.
Okay. Thank you.
So that leaves us with the 2007, 2008 debt. And I have actually like 6 scenarios. I had sent out a spreadsheet, I think that had 4 scenarios on it. I added 2 last night, and I actually really kind of like one of them. I think hopefully you will as well. So now in all of these scenarios, we're going to be talking about this 2.257 million that we have in reserves. We have to hold reserves based on the covenants of those debt issuances. But as we pay it off, that number can go down. So while I show the examples of us holding that till the end, as we decrease that principal, we can decrease this amount and pay extra. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's 1/12 of the remaining principal, I believe, is what we have to hold. On both, it's the same language in both the 07 and 08. So we have some money that we'll be able to use, but for this discussion, I'm just showing it. We pay everything and then we pay the 2.2. So,
And I'm sure you're gonna go over another slide here. So the 1.73, I think it is, that was the debt that was voted on, only applies to these last two you're showing us. Is that correct?
well, part of that will pay that 85,000 for the 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So when we bring it, that will go towards that as well. So the 2.8, well, it's on the next slide.
Okay.
So, yeah, the 1.735 there, you'll see it's going to bring in a 2.847. We'll take out. The first thing we'll pay off is this out of that money. So call it 2.7677. In there it becomes available to pay the two principal and interest payments scheduled for this year right now. So this example is paying it off in 2 years, only using voted debt. So if you didn't want to use any other principal, you would only use voted debt. Your millage rate this year, obviously 1.735. Next year, you'd have to adopt a millage rate of approximately 1.245. And then you would use the reserves and it goes to zero. I just wanted to show you that. That's because even at this point, if we just did that, we didn't do anything else, we're still paying it off 2 years early. So the city.
And that was both ones.
That, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So doing nothing other than collecting the voted millage rate, you still pay it off in 2 years rather than 4. So that's good news in and of itself, but we have a plan to accelerate. So since you've given us direction to pay off the big bond, that will free up about $800,000 in general fund monies because we scheduled the payment. So that budget you had included $800,000 in debt service payments. After we pay that off in August, obviously I've got $800,000 to work with that can be used for anything. I'm proposing using it for paying towards this debt. So that's what this scenario does. If you do that and collect your voted debt this year, you take that 800,000, pay it off, and it reduces the amount. So on the last slide, it was like, let me just go back. Scenario 1 had a second year millage rate of 1.245, but if we use that 800,000, you'd only need to go to 0.75 for a millage rate for that second year, plus the reserves to pay it off. Originally, this was kind of the one I was leaning towards. It accelerates it. We save interest. The interest savings on these are real rough estimates. And I say that because I can't make the payments until I receive the taxes. The taxes come in throughout the year. It's not like October 1, I get 2.84 million to spend.
Right.
It trickles in. So I tried to base it on Vice Mayor Bryan and I talked a little bit. I used 80% here and 20% there, and I did kind of a rough number on that. So real rough savings. I actually think that if we accelerate it a little bit, we'll get more than that. But I want to be conservative in that number.
Kurt?
Yes.
Does the law require you to wait till you receive the tax revenue before you pay off the debt, or can you use your cash reserves, pay it off, and then reimburse as it comes?
I don't believe we would be allowed to, say we paid off these now, we no longer have debt, so I can't issue tax that is specifically for debt.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm taxing you then for something that doesn't exist.
Okay.
So
Right.
yeah, we
That's what I thought.
I think
I just was.
many of us talk about that idea, but that I think once the debt is gone, the right or the privilege to tax disappears with it.
And then the city is like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, just
Even if you've already set the tax millage rate, you can only spend it whenever you
yes.
receive it.
I get it. Okay.
But again, if we paid it off October 1, even though we've already set the millage rate and trim notices have gone out, I think you open yourself up to a lawsuit that says the tax notice didn't even go out till November 15th. You've already paid the debt. Why are you asking me for taxes?
No.
And so I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, no,
And even if you could go down that road, even if it was legal, it still doesn't make it the right thing to do.
No, I agree.
So, the next scenario is, as I said earlier, at 5.23, we have 300,000 extra in taxes. If you want to stay at 5.23, I propose taking that money and applying it to accelerate a loan as well. I'm not looking to bank that money. I would, but I think in these times, increasing that rate, it will be advertised as a 3.61% tax increase. And in these times, we're balanced at rollback, zero tax increase. I think that sends a message, in my opinion, to our citizens that we're trying to be fiscally responsible with their dollars. I also think you could make the argument that, hey, we're trying to pay off this debt so that in the long run,
yeah,
you're going to have less taxes. To make it either way, but just because of the times when we have people out of work or on fixed incomes or the market, I know it's climbing back up, but it took a big
Big time.
drop. I don't know today than what it's doing today. So I didn't have an interest calculation on this one. It would be slightly different than the first one.
And tell me one more time, when would these, the new one that you had last night, would those be paid off in 2021?
Actually, we'll come up to
Okay.
next, but yes, that actually does it all in 1 year.
Wow.
So, I kind of like that one myself. So now this one shows if we stay at 5.23 mils plus the $800,000 from the general fund, so you're adding about 1.1 million. But you would still need to have a millage rate of 0.575 in the second year to collect roughly 930,000 in taxes. So you'd still be taxing in the second year. Does save us a little bit more. So this is the one I added, and you guys haven't really seen this. So we're collecting the 1.7350 unless you decide to lower that this year. We collect that this year. We use the $800,000 from that debt. And then this proposal is to use roughly 1.24 million of reserves to accelerate this payment. And then we would be able to use the 2.25, all of that, and we pay it off in this year.
could you back up and just show the interest on the savings on the previous one?
225.
225.
Is this,
It's about an $90,000 increase in savings.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And again, these are ballpark,
Yeah, I
depending on
understand.
timing of ebb and flow of money.
Kurt, is this the one that you added because you're most comfortable with it?
I added it because you'll see on some of the slides, we, in my opinion, have the reserves to do it without damaging those reserves. Obviously, reserve level requirements or decisions, that's a council, that's a policy decision. You tell me what you're comfortable with, and that's what we'll do. If you tell me you're comfortable with $1 million in reserves, guess what? We'll go to $1 million in reserves. If you tell me we need 50 million in reserves, we're going to work on getting to 50 million. So that's a policy decision which resides in your power, but I'm going to make a recommendation. So this is the recommendation. You see, current year, obviously, this is paying off at one bond. But over here, I'm proposing to use in this year 1.2 million. 1.2 million and the 2.257 in reserves. And what that does is, with dipping into reserves for both of those, are unassigned money can be used for anything, will only drop from 13.68 million to be 12.5 if we pay off the one. If we use that money this year, it drops to 11.2 million. I'm comfortable, and I've had discussions with the city manager. 10 million is kind of our comfort level for reserves. Some people may be at 5 million. Again, I'm looking to you guys. This would leave us at about 11.3 round numbers in unassigned fund balance that's available for whatever emergency or project or whatever council would choose to do, or, so it doesn't just wipe out reserves, just take the 11 million out of reserves and pay off all the bonds is kind of the last example.
I would say, if I may, I'm completely comfortable with the $11.2 million, your recommendation. I think, for the people who are on fixed incomes, particularly Social Security, there's no cost of living increase for our residents. And the fact that we can pay off all of our debt in 2 years, as well as
This
have
also
a,
makes it one
this is
year.
sorry, all of our debt in 1 year, and also have the rollback rate, and not increase taxes. I think I'm a resident first, I'm a council person, but I'm also a resident first. I think it's wonderful for our residents.
So this scenario is, again, we do collect the 1.735 in the coming fiscal year, but thereafter, instead of paying the 5 plus the 1.75 next year, it'll be whatever, just a general fund. So in essence, after 1 year, you're dropping 1.7 mils off their tax bill, that's a huge, that's 25% of the general fund.
And while other people all over the country are raising taxes, we're rolling them back.
Yes.
I just,
The other nice thing is, no, you're right. And plus the other nice thing is you always have access to inexpensive money if heaven forbid you need to go out and either do a bond or borrow it.
yeah, if we had to refinance, if something happens, we have an emergency, certainly, and with $11 million in the bank, there's not a bank in the world that's going to turn us away.
Right.
With 11 million in the bank, we can get better rates and everything versus, you've probably heard of other cities that during storms had to go borrow money, and they paid dearly for it because they didn't have any reserves to, support that covenant to be able to repay.
I was telling Kurt too, I listened to South Daytona's city council meeting the other day, and they finally got into a positive. So for all those years they've been in a negative, I think what I tell you was, I finally got up to $1 million, and we're thrilled.
Yes.
So we're just so happy the way that the money is managed in the city. But a question, when you said 1 year, does that mean like August of 2021, or what does exactly 1 year mean?
It is, yes. So as the money comes in, obviously I'll pay it off. So I can't tell you that it's going to be August 1st.
Okay.
It'll
But
be,
that's
as the money
your
comes
goal,
in
okay.
and as it's available, we'll knock it down. So I probably will go ahead and take the 800, even though we won't have received that money, the 800,000, I'll probably take that out of reserves. So reserves will short-term go lower, but then it'll be replenished when we get the taxes, primarily January and February, along with 1.2 million. So right off the bat, it'll be close to 2 million that we're paying off. Again, trying to maximize our interest savings.
First of all, I agree with Councilman Frizzalone. To me, this just seems like a win-win, almost like a no-brainer. And I want to congratulate you that you've gone through 4 or 5 different scenarios, and finally, the night before the budget meeting, came up with the one that seems like for a couple of us worked the best until you're.
Thank you. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
see what we can do to maximize.
I think
those
the other thing, by calling in all of us, and getting all of our input and letting us all weigh in independently, so that it's nice to come in to a meeting like this where your fellow council members have all met with you. And so I think that's terrific that you took that time to be able to meet with all of us. And I also want to echo what the mayor said. I do think that, this kind of thing, Vice Mayor Bryant, this was your initiative. You really led this forward. I know we all helped, particularly Mel, but I think all of the residents owe you a debt of gratitude on this.
Thank you.
Well, one of the other things too, I'm sure that most of us are aware, interest rates aren't going anywhere in the next few years. So if we did have to go for a loan for any reason, we're going to be able to get a lot less than the 4+ that we're paying now. Probably more in the range of 2%.
Particularly with Powell making the decision, which is never been done in history, where he's actually not even going to peg interest rates to inflation. He's actually willing to let inflation run higher than the 2% and a lot hotter before he will even think about interest rates. So, I mean, we're pretty much free and clear here. So this is just, and again, to your credit, Kurt, I mean, this is just the yeoman's task. I think you've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you. So what will happen is for September, I'll have to modify the budget document to include all of those changes. So
September 9th.
For September, it'll be done, yeah, it'll be, actually, I'll probably just do it next week,
Yeah.
but,
Kurt,
we'll have, yeah.
Go ahead and finish, but I want to make two comments. Ask a question first and then make two comments.
I was just gonna say it'll be changed, so it'll look different, and the total budget will look, higher, because we're gonna put 1.24 million of fund reserves back into the budget. So it'll be closer to where we were last year, but you'll know that it's for prepayment of that debt. So as you get that in, oh, please don't go, what the heck happened? They were up, $1.2 million. What expenses did we have? Well, that's what it's gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask the question and make the
Yeah.
comments. Roughly, if you sum all these numbers, these savings numbers, I wasn't.
With that option was roughly 313,000. So if you, I didn't do a slide. Sorry. That was 450 plus 23 plus 313, 786.
786,
That's
almost
awesome.
800,000.
Yeah, so almost $800,000 in interest savings, and I'm hoping to be able to get that a little higher as we
Yeah.
accelerate these payments. So,
Yeah, let me make this comment because this is a policy decision. Of that 800,000, we should think about how much of that, I mean, we're actually going to be giving taxpayers a lot more than 800,000 if we don't raise millage rates, after this year. So we should decide, is that what we want to do? And I'm not saying we should or shouldn't. Or should we only give taxpayers this 800,000? Or how much should we be giving the taxpayers over this? And I'm just saying that's a policy decision. I'm not making a recommendation now. I'm just raising the question.
Is that this year or next year? Richard?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand it.
I'm not following your train of thought.
Kurt, do you understand it?
yeah, sort of. You're at, okay, so that 800,000 is savings technically over the next 6 years.
Yeah, right.
Because that one bond was scheduled to be paid off in 2026. So, however, you're actually giving them a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And correct me if this is not what you're intending to say. So we were scheduled over the next 4 years to collect that voted debt. So we're going to get about 2.8 million this year. If we had done it on schedule, it had been another 2.8 million. Just as I showed you, we were on pace to pay it off early. So we're actually putting 2.8 million plus the 800,000 back in their pockets. So it's closer to 3.6 million over that time frame.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to need to tax them. Obviously, if we change the general fund rate, that's different. But right now, we're saving them that additional money. So it's,
And that's-
to me, it's a big deal. Is that,
Without using those specific numbers, we are giving them a lot more than the 800,000 we're saving. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that is something we should think about as a policy. Is that what we really want to do?
Sure.
In my view, yes. I mean, in my view, yes. I mean, these are our residents. I mean, we have 5,000 of them, and our job is to take care of them. So if we can do this and still keep over a $10 million cash reserve to Mike's and to Kurt's credit, then I think that we should absolutely move forward with this. I think you're right.
Is everybody else doing the same?
Yeah, you're right. Vice Mayor Brian saying that it's a policy decision.
So what would that mean? So would we go lower than 5.04 this
No,
year? That means-
no,
okay.
No, we said it's where we are.
Okay, all right.
our combined rate is just under 7 right now, but you would then be going only to 5. So that difference is what, because you're
Once you pay it off.
doing this early, you're not going, I'm going to collect for the following 3 years to pay that back. We're stopping it now, so they're not paying for those 3 years.
So instead of the 5.23 and the 1.7, it
just
could be
the
50,
5
or it could be
5.04.
504.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a.
So I'm
Okay.
hoping that we get a decent increase next year, and the rollback would be like 4.9, so it's below 5.
Right.
But
And that could very well happen. And again, I think the holy grail on this is that if we have to, I don't think we will, but in the off chance that we do have to go out and find money because of a hurricane or something that really is serious, given the interest rate environment and given the fact that we will still have $11 million in the bank, there's every bank that would lend us money at very inexpensive rates. So we really have nothing to lose here and everything to gain with that kind of backdrop.
yeah, and we actually have access to the
Yeah.
8 in sewer. We
Yeah.
really, in a crunch,
Correct, in a crunch. Yeah,
we
if you had to.
have that sitting in the bank, so we have access to more than 11.
Yeah, we could-
Obviously, we have to pay it
Push
back.
came to
right?
shove.
Push came to shove, yeah, absolutely. Because if we have a major, say it's not a hurricane, say it's something else, and it's more statewide or whatever, getting the banks to loan us money, it'd be one thing to get our money out, it may be hard enough. But to have to go get a loan and go through that process, I did do a bond one time in less than 3 months. I thought that was phenomenal. $6.5 million bond, and that's a whole other story.
Can I,
Well,
is it also true that this is a wonderful thing that we've done this analysis, but isn't it also another good thing is that in anticipation of what's going to happen next year with regards to the assessed values, let's say we don't have the values at
The 1.7.
1.6 billion,
Yeah.
and it's the taxable values are substantially lower as a result of COVID and all the other things that are going on in the world, then at least if we have to raise the millage rate and we have the other one we don't have to,
Yes.
at least we can justify it to meet the budget needs, because expenses will always stay the
Yeah.
same or go up.
Good
But
point.
now you say, listen, we saved you the 1.7, but we're gonna have to increase this one only 0.5% to meet our, and you're not gonna have a lot of
That's a great
hostility.
point, yeah. Even if we
Because
had
you
to
may
go,
have to anticipate that.
Yeah.
say we had to go to 5.5, that's
Yeah.
still lower than the roughly 6.9 we have right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Smart.
that's the idea.
I'm
It's a
in
big
agreement.
chunk of that.
Yeah, I think this is a good deal.
It sounds like we're all on board. Do we have to?
yeah.
do
No
that?
voting today, we're
There's
just.
no voting.
No, but I mean, it's-
Now, so you will vote on Tuesday
right.
to pay off the 2, the sewer and the big bond.
But we do want to direct you to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, well,
Today?
by approving the budget amendment, that gives me direction. If it's in the budget,
You've already got the direction you
I've got the
need.
direction to do
Okay.
it.
that's
But I
fine.
can't do it until I have it in the budget.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd be trying to contact the bank, today.
Yeah.
But again,
So
So you vote on that.
Tuesday evening, you're going to adjust the budget based on what we've talked about here today for those.
current year budget.
Okay, yes,
And then on the 9th, you'll see the other amendments to use the 800,000.
okay. Very good.
And then the 1.2 million from reserves to put that into next year's budget. So you won't see that as an amendment, it'll just look different in the budget document.
Very good.
So,
So the 9th is when the, sort of the final decision to adopt this scenario
yes,
is made. And from a PR standpoint, I would suggest we make a PR effort to let the residents know that we just voted to save them $3.5 million or whatever it is.
After the 9th.
yeah, on the 9th,
After the
you'll
9th.
basically put that into play.
And then,
So on the 9th, I'm gonna think, wish the attorney was here.
You had talked about the 9th and the 22nd.
Yes, we have to do, we did the proposed, there's 3 steps, the proposed, the tentative, and the final. What I don't know is, the consensus I'm hearing is 5.0 rollback, 5.0476 as the tax rate. I think I have to make the resolution on the 9th, what you proposed, and then somebody will have to make an amendment
Okay.
to lower it to the rollback. But let me check with the attorney on that. I might be able to just bring back the 5.0476.
Okay.
I'll have to see what I can legally do in trim process. You don't want to mess up here.
Okay.
They'll make you do it all over again. So I'll verify that with the attorney. I'll call and get that squared away.
Again, council, very much thank you for working together to save the residents this money and bringing this up, and thank you, Kurt.
Thank you. Were there other issues You,
Oh, yes, yes, I look at the salary charts and the wages, and I've had several folks talk to me, about some of the lower wages of our maintenance folks, making $12 an hour. I'm out there, they're working very, very hard. It's, 95 degrees out there. And, I just think with, Home Depot, Amazon.com, McDonald's, so many companies, Walmart have gone to the 15-hour minimum. I think for $28,000, I'd like to see us take care of our maintenance workers and lift their salaries, from $12 to $15 an hour.
What do we have to do to do that?
I'd like to talk about ahead of time, and even though I applaud you for doing that, I'm very, very worried about morale. When I looked on some of the people, I think there was one gentleman that had been there 4 years, 5 years, making 1512. So again, and this was somebody that had been a maintenance worker 1, 2, and 3. So they worked their way up, and so I would like to look at the wages, but I don't think we can stop right at that entry level. I don't think that's fair to the other people. I want to pay, whenever you talk about pay plans, you have to look at something fair and equitable. And that means for all of your employees. So, again, I've been, just put yourself in that position. So that would mean someone that has been here 2 weeks, because we had people that started 2 weeks ago. So someone that had been here 2 weeks is going to make $15 an hour, but I've been here 4 years and I make $15.12.
Yeah, I understand the point.
I think one of the things that we might be able to do is establish that as our goal and then step it up so that the people who are here longer
It
are
can
already.
be done over several years even.
Yeah.
Which I agree with that too. So Kurt, what I'd like to look at is, there was things I didn't like about that salary study, but yet there were things in there too that I did agree with, that we make the entry level, a little bit higher.
Absolutely.
Whether we work on classifications
And it doesn't even have to be, to your point, it doesn't have to be $15 an hour, but the person making $12 can go to 14, and then you have a real separation between church and state for somebody. I mean, $1 an hour is a big deal. So, and that may be another way to ameliorate the situation. It could even be $13.50. I just think that, they're trying to feed their families, they're trying to get educated. So certainly, $1, even $1 to your point, Mayor Miller, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be 15, but something that would give them a more livable wage.
so let me make sure that I'm understanding where you're wanting to look at is to say eventually, whether it's in a year or 3 years, get to 15 at a minimum. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think so. I think the mayor's making a good point that you have people making $15.03 and somebody who's making $12 jumps to 15. So maybe what we can do is meet halfway, and maybe the person at $12 goes to $13.50. So something along that gives them a higher wage than they have now, but still doesn't encroach on the person that's been here for 4 years at $15.
The example, the mayor and I talked this morning about this one. There's one employee that we're talking about. I'm not going to say his name, but he's worked here about 5 years. He started as a maintenance worker 1, did what he needed to do to work up to a maintenance worker 2, did what he needed to do to get up to a maintenance worker 3. And just this year, based on his merit increase, he's going to get to 1523, not 1512, 1523. So he's finally going to get over $15 an hour. And then to all of a sudden say, hey, everybody below him is going to be at 15. It kind of negates all the work of all the folks who went from a worker 1 to a worker 2 to a worker 3. I applaud the concept of trying to get our low end up. A livable wage is, in my opinion, not $12 an hour.
Right.
I don't know how some of our guys do it, to be honest with you.
So I'd like some suggestions. So for right now, let me ask you this question. If we did the merit as we did before, those people with 2 weeks of service are not really going to get.
What they would get is, so the way our plan works is we have our min and our max. So the plan shifts the minimum of that position by 50% of the CPI. So this year the CPI was 2.08, so let's just say 2.
1 point.
So the min is going to shift 1%. So those folks will shift 1%. You have to be here 6 months before you're eligible for the merit. So it's going to shift 1% October 1, but they don't get merit. They get whatever dollar is amount by that CPI adjustment.
Are you saying there's two parts to it? One is merit, the other is the CPI? Is that what you're saying?
It depends on your particular situation. We start people at the minimum, but so we just started somebody. Say we start them August 1st.
Yeah, we did.
So they're clearly not here for 6 months. They're not getting a merit. They're going to get whatever that CPI minimum shifts. So they don't. Otherwise, they're now below the minimum pay. So the guy that's hired October 1 is now making more, 1% more than him if we don't shift that. So they do get something, but
So we have to shift something, and those two people that started at 12 or whatever they started at, they're still on a probationary pay, basis. So we want to look to see how they work out. Where the guy that went from 1 to 2 to 3 has that experience that's valuable to our city. And I think if you're staying here 4 or 5 years, you have a loyalty and a pride to the city too. And those are the kind of things I want to make sure that we're rewarding too. So I don't think, we can do just from the
I
bottom.
know you and I just want
Yeah.
to talk about, and not the brainstorm today, but something that when you hit, say, 3 years, is that maybe the point where you showed some loyalty to the city and then you change. But I think we have a pretty talented staff that we can come up with something that would shift.
So is that something that you could look at now, or are you saying you want to do business as usual now, and then you have our direction at the beginning of the year to either pick out parts of that survey that would work for us, or what are you saying you want to
I think there's a combination somewhere, a happy medium that we can address some of that and address especially the lower end folks and get them up to the livable wage, that livable wage, whatever. I know that's changing as well. There's been talk now that the livable wage is 20, not 15. So that will be a policy. What council says is livable wage will be y'all's decision. We can make recommendations as staff, but that's policy, and we'll make some recommendations. I will look at Sherry and Mike on what kind of time frame. Is it something you want to look at, say, over the next year, and then we have a revised pay plan or process for doing that?
I would like to really look at something seriously at the beginning of next year.
Okay, so where I'm going with that is we would need to put some dollars into the budget now, or if we do something, say, November, December, or even January 1, we would have to do a budget amendment this year where to implement that change, which is, it's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to look at a total package because, just from some of my experience, I see, and I'll try to call it David out, but some, like an IT person, from what little bit I know about it, that wage. So how do we do that, Kurt? I'm looking for you. Did we do that reclassification that they talked about?
There's a combination of ways. You could, if we have a particular position that's underpaid, a lot of times if somebody gets another job, as an example, you counter. If you want them to stay, you counter. Well, they keep them within their pay range, but now they're getting significantly more, or you change their range and place them in the new range.
I would like to do something before they got to that point that said they wanted to leave.
Yes.
So that's why I'm trying to look at this now.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's typically how it happens.
But I think to your point, Mayor Miller, you're saying sometime the first of the year, correct?
Yes,
So we can just come back the first of the year and take a look.
Yeah.
I think maybe what we can do is meet individually between now and then and come up with some suggestions.
Yeah, if you have suggestions,
Sure.
Y'all are very smart, and I look up to you on things. I've learned a lot from all of you. So if you have ideas, I'll take all of your ideas and staff ideas and try and meld them into a program that I think will work for the city.
Just to make sure you're both talking about the same first of the year, You talking about January 1 or September?
January 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was on the same
Yeah,
page.
yeah. So that we have, because I think it is going to take a while to get to. Other things that I want to talk about, and I've talked to our HR director and our city manager, and they're on the page with it too. Because a lot of this is tied to merit, I want to make sure that supervisors know how to accurately evaluate their people, that everyone's not a 5 or a 2 or whatever. So I want to make sure in conjunction with that, and our HR director did say they had some plans for the supervisors that do appraisals to get everyone on the same page, so everyone is evaluated basically the same way. So I think that would be a good study that we could do at the beginning of the year. So my understanding though for our conversation today, because we'll look at it at the beginning of the year, that we're going to go business as usual with our merit CPI.
Yes.
Okay. So do we have, is that what's in this budget, or do we have to do
No,
anything
that's
specific?
what's in this budget. So
It's,
that,
just for the record, for everybody, it's about 2%. So we're talking about 2% increases.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that what it amounts to for,
overall,
Across
yes,
the board.
it's 2%. Basically, you take the CPI, add it up, and then
Oh, that 2.08.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
depending on whether you get a 3, 4, or 5, it takes it from that pool of money and allocates it. So 3s get a little less than a 4, and a little less, 4s get a little less than a 5.
But you can see how important an accurate
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
appraisal is, when you do something like that, so.
Yeah, we, going along with that, I think we just need to maybe even get an overall report on the different departments and how they're grading their people. And if the people all come in at 5s in certain departments, either they got really great people or the manager is not grading.
Yeah,
correctly.
and that's what we'll work on.
Yeah. We want the people that are doing the job and doing a good job.
And
to get
show
the
that
raises.
I also agree with Mayor Miller 100%, in that, to your credit, she actually looked and took the time to look person by person. There are some people that I'm looking at, like Mayor Miller, IT, there's some people I think, you look at it and you can probably justify increases, but to Councilman Lindauer's last meeting, he was very clear and I thought very eloquent when he said, we need to do this on a targeted approach. It can't be just an across the board, every increase. It's got to be targeted, focused, laser-like, because that is really the right way to run the railroad. And there's a couple of people that I saw that I'm not going to name names now either, Kurt, but they look low to me. It's just given my background and say they look a little bit low, and I'd like to see them. Again, it's not just the maintenance workers. There's some people that I thought were a little on the low end of the pay scale that I think we should probably help.
Yeah, and merit should be merit.
Yes.
Yeah, it's automatic.
Yeah.
Okay,
let me bring up a minor dollar amount. But these amounts in here for the homeless shelters,
Yes.
can we find somebody, maybe in another city, that can evaluate whether either one or both are spending the money well?
is that the new first shelter?
There are 2 of them.
Okay, first shelter
Place and
and
first step.
I think we have,
I would think, first of all, I think it's a great point. It's our money. We might as well make sure that what we're giving is actually being utilized properly. But I would think Stacy would be a good person for that.
maybe, or maybe the city's already either hired somebody to do it or done an expert to do it themselves, or.
I'm not even sure who's running first step right now.
wasn't a Catholic Charities, and then it switched to
Yeah,
someone
yes,
else, and then
yeah.
they've had a lot of turmoil.
They have a lot of turmoil and turnover,
It's terrible.
so I'm not sure who's even running that.
You can't believe everything you read in the newspaper. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard great things personally about Hope Place. And it's been about a year since I talked to anybody who was heavily involved in that stuff. My former mayor is also my insurance guy. So I talked to him. He's been heavily involved in that, and he gives kudos to Hope Place. I haven't heard him say anything about First Step.
Okay, well, your other former city manager was actively involved in First Step, and
Yeah, he
yeah,
got so frustrated
yeah,
and
right.
resigned.
So, and I don't know if they're coming, Roseanne, from your building.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
okay.
hard.
Yeah, and I think she's on the board there.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so,
I
that's a
know-
good point.
I know Chief,
Yeah, I mean, I think they're worthy causes, but if one of them is not spending the money wisely, we should just put all the money in the other.
Absolutely correct. I agree 100%.
Chief, have we sent anybody to, the shelter place? And if,
Not that I know
okay,
of. We have homeless in the area that they usually just kind of want to
Okay.
go somewhere else.
But-
They don't usually want to go to that shelter.
okay.
And I'm speaking anecdotally, when I've asked my officers, we have not had anybody say, yes, they want to go to the shelter.
Yeah.
I had one the other day that I was dealing with, and he had no intention whatsoever of going to that shelter.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to stay in shore.
But I agree, that we need to take a look at,
So,
are we spending our
could
money
we just
wisely?
assign somebody to come back with maybe some names or, so that,
I'll get with the city manager.
okay.
Look at that, all right. Hey, before we go on, we don't have a lot more. I wanted to go over something too that I'm sure as everyone else was, I was getting a lot of emails. I guess there was a survey that went out. Just want to make sure, I'm hoping nobody from city council is involved in these surveys because there was so much misinformation that just actually sickens me that our residents don't have the big picture. One of the things was that city council, that we were looking to get raises. We have never spoken about that. It was never in the budget, but yet this came out in a survey.
Well, I addressed that, that was
I'm
the,
confused
That
by
was a
that.
county.
What's a survey?
I'm just hearing from some residents that there was a survey that was sent out.
actually, Rick, what they were talking about, I corrected the information
Okay.
because I got it too. What happened is, the city,
County council.
no, I got the feedback because of that survey. They're saying, well, how dare you ask for raises? So what happened is, they read about county council asking about putting a raise on the ballot in November,
Correct.
and they assumed that was us. All they heard was the word council.
It was an assumption. One of the emails actually said, don't give city council a raise.
Yeah, so she apologized and said, thanks for straightening her
Okay,
out.
that was that
So,
resident.
yeah.
The next thing is, it was just a blanket type survey that said something about pay off all debt from the reserves without saying how much we had in reserve, how much, so if you don't include those numbers in there, what about if it would have been 100% of our reserves? So that was another issue I had. And the third one I had, it said, don't give raises that would amount to $400,000. So I don't know, I think I actually get more emails than you do. I think they just say.
No, I saw that.
Okay, all right, so is that a disservice? I'm saying again, I don't know, I hope nobody here is behind it. I don't know where this is coming from, but it's a big email chain to several of our residents, and that's so much misinformation. And I just emailed the person back that, the ones that did, I said, that's not the true picture. Please turn into this budget meeting. So I'm hoping people that are on here or start to come to the city council meetings or ask us for the correct information. So,
I think the 400, what did Evergreen mention 400?
Yeah, it was
yeah,
400.
189.
189 was the other.
189. And that again was minus what we were already planning on paying, so.
So if I can interject
Sure.
for just a second, last year we had the group that called themselves the Budget Committee. And I was happy to meet with them. We had a couple meetings up at City Hall. We exchanged emails with information and follow-up questions and stuff. And I am more than happy to do that with any of our citizens I'd rather have the correct numbers. Whether you agree with the number or not, that's not the
Make sure it's the
discussion in my
correct.
opinion. Let's have the right information out there
Sure.
Yeah.
versus random numbers. So if somebody wants to, I'm a phone call or an email away. I think most of our staff feels about, that way, whether it's a public safety issue or a public works issue. Call us, email us. More than happy to have anybody up, to meet on those things, because clear information is so much better than trying to
Stomp
put
that
a
out.
spin on a rumor.
Right, exactly. So anyone that is listening online for our residents, you've heard our director of finance say that he will meet with anyone. So if you're getting any of these emails with this information, please do your due diligence to check to make sure that those numbers that are going out are correct. As you can see, instead of this $400,000, we're now going to do $15,700. It's a huge difference.
That's not exactly true, nor is it fair, Mayor Miller. The Evergreen study, whether it was 400,000 or 200,000, and that was the rankle. So the issue was the Evergreen study, and the Evergreen study was, according to Kurt, 200,000. I thought, like Vice Mayor Bryan, it's $400,000. It was the Evergreen study that was the driver of everything. So be careful when you say misinformation. There was no misinformation. The Evergreen study was a raise for everybody based upon a host of factors, of which the gentleman presented. And the question was whether or not the city staff was going to go forward with it or not. And the city staff's first possession on this was to go forward with it. Make no mistake about it. I mean, I was with you in many meetings, and the first recommendation was, how do we fund this? So I would ask you to be careful in making sure that you don't spin this so that it looks like a $15,000 raise, because it was going to be significantly more than that if we adopted the Evergreen survey.
Okay, and I must have missed something, because
Well, I think you did.
my thought from the beginning was that was a recommendation.
It was a recommendation that was looking to go forward.
I didn't get the vote for it, so I must have missed something.
Kurt,
Yeah.
could I ask you a
Is the
technical,
right number 200?
189.
Okay.
can I ask you a technical question? Based on the little discussion we had about the charity thing, can you, once it's in there and it says it's going to First Step or it's going to Hope, is that locked in stone, or can we dump it into one category, charitable contributions, so we can discuss further where we feel it should go, rather than?
Absolutely. And if council says, hey, Hope Place, we found out, they're not doing anything but turning kids away when they have empty beds or whatever, or families away. And
Well, First Shelter is the one that I have seen the most problems with. I had problems with them in the beginning. I just didn't feel it was right, and,
that is absolutely a council decision. As long as we haven't already cut the check, then it's
I
absolutely a
just didn't know
council
if it was in
decision.
the line item,
Right.
that we had to follow it.
We're just continuing. No, you don't have to do that. Those are the items that we're anticipating to do that, but it's not uncommon for staff to go, we put item X in the budget, but we found that item Y will actually work better for us, and hey, it's cheaper too. And just because we called out item X, if we have a better opportunity, it boils down to that main line item that says, and I just drew a line on what the contribution ones is called, but that there's a total dollar there, and we can reallocate it as needed.
I just didn't want First Shelter to be able to look at the budget and say, it says right in there that you're giving me 20,000, so you owe me 20,000. That's all I wanted to be able to avoid.
Right.
And we can amend the budget at any time.
Yeah, I just didn't want to give any outsiders an opportunity to come in and say, you made a commitment, we made a commitment based on that. Therefore, you got
Just because we talked about it tonight, I mean, on Tuesday, you could, as a council, could say, look, I want to take all of that and go to shelter XYZ instead of those two. That
That's
would
okay.
be absolutely legitimate to do.
But you and the city manager are going to come back with some names of people you think could give.
I'll
Yeah.
talk with the city manager
Could
and
give
see
a
how he
good
would like to proceed with
evaluation
that.
of
Yeah.
those two.
So again, getting back to the salary at the beginning of next year, was it actually 189? Did you explain to me it wasn't going to be that high, that it was?
Well, so their proposal was in lieu of doing our merit increases. So I did the math of what were our merit increases and what was I plugged all the numbers into the spreadsheet, and their full implementation with the change of the mins and maxes, the reclassifications, plus placing people within those new salary ranges, actually was only going to be, if I remember correctly, just under $50,000 more than our current merit plan. However, I have issues with that plan when I plugged it into the spreadsheet, and that's a whole nother issue. But
Okay, so,
What's the total for the current merit plan?
are you talking about increase?
Yeah.
It's roughly 2% because that's the pool that it creates.
Yeah, what 2%? I mean, I don't know what the X is.
Well, I can't say this year
Yeah.
to last year, and the reason I say that is, last year I had, for example, Terry Griffiths was in last year's budget.
Yeah.
But 2% is close to $200,000.
Roughly,
And
yeah.
then take the 189, that's 389, which is the $400,000 that was bantered about. It was not a number of money bantered about. I believed it was $400,000, and I was,
It was a misunderstanding, I think, that he's saying it was in lieu of, and you're saying it was in
Yes.
addition to.
I think that's part
I have
of
talked to several residents,
Yes.
and they did send an email, and I'll stand behind that email. And it's my right to be able to send an email to my constituents to try to stop something that I don't believe in. And I am dead set against the Evergreen study. It was $400,000 when you take the 2 and add to 189. So you can
I'm
have
sorry,
a
what
lot
was
of,
the two again?
hold on, Mabel. You can have a lot of numbers bantered about. The question is it right to do across the board increases based upon some consultant waltzing in here in an environment that's got COVID-19? And the answer to that question should be no. It was not brought up today, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that a lot of residents were against it. And as I was, and I was going to get as much support as I possibly could Tuesday night to end the Evergreen study. So I want to be very clear at how much I'm against this, and I don't want to run away and hide from it, because I want to be totally transparent. I think it was a bad idea, and I think the city staff did the right thing backing down, because they were going to bring this forward. So that's where Councilman Frizzalone stands, and I stand behind what I did, and I will do it again. I think the Evergreen study is absolutely ill-advised.
So when you bring something back to us next year,
And by the way, I hate to say this to you, ma'am, but I'm very, very upset about the Evergreen stuff. I will tell you, I really cannot tell you enough. I think it's absolutely egregious that the city staff wanted to go ahead and put together, whether it's 400,000 or 200,000 or a partridge in a pear tree. This is not the time to have a consultant waltz in here and for us to give across the board raises. You want to do something isolated, you want to do something targeted, you want to take care of the low end, that's fine. But people like City Manager Booker, no disrespect, who makes $150,000, doesn't need any more money from the city. That's the way that's Councilman Rick Frizzalone, and that's the way I feel about it.
so next year, we would like to probably work together. I think we all realize we need to raise that minimum. We need to do it fair and equitable across the board. If you want to knock that, if you want to piece anything out of there that makes any sense, but I'm sure you're hearing the recommendation right now, overall, that was not accepted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually kind of clear.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd like to follow
we've been behind closed doors. We've been talking about it. I mean, I can go on and on about taking money out of the budget. There's people, and believe me, I mean, we've had some very difficult conversations, Mayor Miller, and I think I could take $500,000 out of the budget salaries and not even make a dent in the running of the city. I don't want to go there because it's not, I don't want to hurt anybody, but the bottom line is that I've done a lot of work on this and I stand behind what I did. And I believe it's the right thing to do for the residents. And that is what got us to be able to pay the debt off in 1 year with Vice Mayor Bryan's initiative, Councilman Lindauer's initiative on top of it, and my initiative stopping the Evergreen raises from going through.
Let me make a comment too.
Sure.
In general, I agree with what Rick's saying, probably not with the same force. But we all voted for it, and I think we should learn from that. If we want to do a study the next time on anything, on right sizing or anything, I think the city council should be in charge of it. Because if somebody comes in and does a study, it's paid for by the staff and initiated by the staff, they're going to lean toward the staff.
All right.
Can I just chime in real quick? If we're running the city like a business, you don't really, you take this survey or this study into consideration, but you're not 100% going to rely on it. But what you have to do is you have to look at all the different departments. You've got the city manager who has the director of public safety, the director of public works, Fred and his things. And you bring them in to the city manager and say, do you have deficiencies? Like I know, and I speak to the chief on a regular basis, there is a difficulty in attracting new recruits to become law enforcement officers. There's a deficiency in the number of personnel that could potentially jeopardize the safety of the citizens. Well, why is there a deficiency? Our salaries are not competitive with other agencies, so they're going to other agencies. Now you make a recommendation to the city commission. We need to increase the entry level, and also in order to retain my sergeants and my captains, I need to give them a small increase. Now you see the cost, but also the need. Same thing with the director of public works. We've got, or the groundspeople. We've got good people. They've been here a while. We need to give them incentive to stay, but at the same time, not jade them, because you're going to also simultaneously increase the entry level. If you're not attracting new people because the entry level rate or what you're offering is not enough and they're going to other cities, then we're not attracting enough people because we need to raise the entry level. So you need to have a comprehensive presentation rather than, and listen, we've all had great suggestions and passions for our different positions, but I'd like to get, if I had to make a decision, I want some data. I want what you need and why you need it, and then I can make an intelligent decision. So that way the citizens realize, okay, we're running a business.
And I think the other thing too, we've had two professional services company. I don't remember the name of the company that started out in terms of when we first got together and we brought everyone in and to talk about what the city needed.
Oh, that, the visioning center.
Division
Yeah, we had UCF.
Yes, I thought that turned out to be a bust. I think Evergreen turned out to be a bust. And I don't think that, in my opinion, we should spend any more money on professional services. This is a small city. I think Councilman Politis, it needs to be run like a business. And, you have 5 very bright, very talented business executives here for help. But also, so are you. I mean, you've got 20 years experience. The chief and I talked about, I do think that I agree with you, the salaries of the police officers, the entry level are low. Why not take a targeted approach where you sit down with the city manager and come back with a plan that would make sense, that targets people who are low in pay, that you want to give merit increases to, and come back with a proposal that we can look at. I am much more comfortable looking at something where you look me in the eye, or the chief looks me in the eye, or the city manager looks me in the eye and says, here's what I want to do, and here's why we need to do it. And I want you to listen to me because this is important to me. Versus some professional services guy that we're paying fortune to come in here and waltzes in, and in the middle of COVID-19 doesn't even have the decency to talk about the environment that we're in. So my bet is, if I'm going to make a bet, I'm going to make the bet on you, and I'm going to make the bet on you, and I'm going to make the bet on you to do the right thing. I don't want to hear any more about professional services.
Yeah.
And if we have to have what the residents want, I'll make a bet on the mayor to lead lead the band of what the residents want, and we'll just do this together. But let's not spend any more money on professional services. You've got 5 talented people right here, a talented staff. Let's work together and do it together.
Well, I think that one of the things is we're putting somebody in between that we don't need. We need to talk to Mike. We need to talk to you. We need to talk to the different division heads, just like you do in a corporation. What do you need? What's wrong with your area? How can we improve things? And let's work together instead of putting somebody in between us. We need the feedback directly from you guys and gals. Tell us what you need, what works and what doesn't work. And I'm sure that something that might have worked a year, 5 years ago, might not be working today. So let's reorganize, let's do whatever we have to do to make it work from now on. And I think that we need to be talking to Mike and the department heads to really get a feel on our end of how to proceed.
And I agree with everyone here. If we have anything else that you feel that we don't have in-house what you need, come to us for the approval, because all that Evergreen, all that came out of it, as far as I'm concerned, is it solidified that between you doing it, you were almost right on.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that was one
Right.
big thing that
So
yeah,
we paid a lot of
our
money.
staff-
We continue to pay a lot of, between the 3 of you, there's 50 years of experience. Why are we paying anybody you know this better, you know what you need better than anyone else, do you not?
How long did we spend on the phone today, chief? We spent an hour on the phone. You know exactly what you need. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys run the railroad. Our job is to back you up. You tell us what you need and we'll get through it. But I couldn't agree with Councilman Linder more is that we've got somebody in between. And I can't agree with my gentleman friend to the left that basically says we need to run the city like a business. It's a business. You are all terrific business people. You guys make the recommendation. Call us up, we'll come in anytime, this is what we need and this is why we need it. And, you know, I think, you know, you've got a council that is pro-staff. I don't think you can be in a better situation. If you're an employee of the Daytona Beach Shores, I don't think you can be in a better situation because you have a council who will listen to reason. And that's all you would want as an employee. All you want is a council who will listen to reason and give you your day in court, give you your day in the sun, and you have it.
Agreed.
Okay, so that was the end of it, so we'll just meet again on Tuesday, and you'll have that budget
The
amendment.
budget amendment will be there Tuesday. The other stuff that we discussed tonight that I got consensus on will be in the revised budget for next fiscal year on September 9th.
All right, any other last
Kurt,
minute?
could we
you know,
just
good, but- I'm sorry.
Could we just summarize so we all leave with the same number? We're gonna save approximately $800,000 by this scenario.
It was actually more than, I would get.
It's close to 900.
I would get the exact numbers.
880,000.
There's a lot of numbers that get bantered around. So I would get the exact numbers so that our residents know
Okay.
what the exact
So
numbers.
somewhere between eight and 900, just as a
I think I
ballpark.
said, well, actually, it's probably
I
still.
think it was
like-
like.
And,
Well,
that-
880 was the original. The
880 was the
revised,
original.
the 880 was if we paid everything off
Today.
tomorrow.
Right.
Type thing. So the number I have on my calculator was 786.
Yeah, I think 800 is what Kurt's estimate is. And then the amount that we're not gonna collect in taxes, what was your estimate on
I
that?
used another 2.8 because that's what the
Okay.
amount was for this current year.
So that
I
really,
had 3.6 million roughly.
Correct.
Combined, yeah, the 800 plus the 2.8, 3.6
That's right,
million.
that's right.
yeah, just so we're all on the
So we're
same.
all on the same page, 3.6.
Hopefully we'll control that rumor.
Yes, that's savings, not additional expenditures.
Correct.
Okay, and we all feel comfortable with the 5.04?
I think for the residents, I think it's a home run.
I would like on Tuesday evening, if we could, because you saw that blasted for Ormond and Daytona. I would hope somebody, well, Sherry can probably do the feed since we're going to have the virtual meeting. But I would like the Hometown News and the Daytona Journal to see that too, to know what we're doing. I
Absolutely.
mean, that, yeah, like you said, get it out there to our residents, that's one.
And I'd
thing,
have
get it out
Stacy
there.
put it all over Facebook. She's very, very good at getting the word out.
Mhm.
Are you talking about what we do at the meeting, how we?
Well, if we do the 5.04, I would like, you know, the Journal to get ahead that we're going back to rollback. When we talked about letting our
That's a big
residents
thing.
know.
But
yeah.
when, that's what I was talking about, the PR. When are we actually gonna make that decision?
You won't formally do that till September 9th.
Yeah, I think maybe we should wait till then.
Well,
It's
tell me, tell me if I'm wrong, but we basically set the budget tonight, didn't we?
No, not formally.
Okay,
We
but
did consensus wise, yeah.
Consensus wise, yes, you
So
said.
thank you for telling me.
You gave me direction what to come back with in
Right.
September,
Okay.
and I think it's a
Thank you.
pretty unanimous decision.
but we gotta change our minds between now and then, so.
You can't go above 5.23, but yes, you can.
That difference is peanuts compared to the 3.6 million. So, you know, if we announce them both, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, 3.6 million.
Yeah, what's that?
300,000, so that's.
Yeah, what that will do.
Okay, anything else before we end the meeting? Good meeting, everyone.
Yes,
Great
thank you.
workshop. I think I had said that we were going to take a break at 2:15 or 2:30, but I saw we were moving right along, so I didn't do that. So
Great job, great job.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much. Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
I could put a diaper on.
Yeah, I know.